Hello and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday, the 6th of December 2015. We're glad to say that the new PC is up and running very fast and fantastic, working perfectly. Again, a big thank you to the listeners who donated towards raising the funds for the new PC. It's super duper, and I'm very excited that it's in and it's up and running, and just we have more space, and so far, touch wood, everything's been working perfectly. So a big thank you for that. Right, on the show tonight, our guest is Simon, the Spaniard, and Simon hasn't been on since around February 2014, and there's a lot of things that have gone on Simon's been involved in, and he's been researching. So we look forward to bringing Simon in a few minutes, and we're going to be talking all about the law and mortgages and all that kind of stuff. But for now, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, communication channels this evening, folks.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, 046 927 1212 is the phone number for the studio this evening. We also have the streams on the website there as well. OYMradio.com is the website, as you probably already know, and you will see the link there to OYM chat room and players, and that's where you need to be if you want to log into the chat room or listen to the stream, I suppose. And you can pose questions in our chat room this evening for our guest Simon Spaniard, and we also will be monitoring People's Internet Radio. That is people'sinternetradio.com, monitoring the chat room over there as well. So a big hi to everyone in both of those chat rooms. We also have on the on the website there, we have the Facebook link for the anti-social media. You can befriend us there. You can check out some posts and see what we're up to. And yeah, all things antisocial. That's the place to find that. We also have down the bottom of the website there, we have the link for the YouTube channel. A lot of our podcasts are up there, and some great video stuff as well, some good interviews. We also have the TuneIn Radio Link application for the smartphone and the iPhone. I got it right. I can't believe I got it right. I didn't say the OYM app. I said the TuneIn Radio Link application. Yeah, so that's there for your smartphone and your iPhone device as well. Log on to your normal place for getting those apps and just download that. Stick it into your device and go to the search bar, type in OYM Radio, and that's where you'll find us. Anyway, there you go. Alan. And
you'll find the app for OYM on the Apple Play Store as well. Well, not the Apple Play Store, the Google Play Store. It's not on Apple, just to let you know. Right, okay, now, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we set up a donations thermometer. It's the first time we did this on OYM. It's for a guest, Alex Collier. Now, I'm sure everybody knows Alex and his background. I mean, what we said, Alex told us that his life was threatened 9 times because the amount of information that he has. And he's basically, come across and have had some hard times. I'm not going to go into detail, but really, really hard times. And there's kids involved as well. He used to mind his kids and stuff like that. So for the first time in OEM, we said, right, okay, what we're going to do is, we know Alex is coming on the show in January, and we're going to set up a donations thermometer and raise a couple of quid for Alex. Well, needless to say, if you go on the website, you'll notice that the actual thermometer is gone. And I'll just say a big thank you. We wanted to raise a certain amount, and we did that. It was fantastic, and just a big thank you to our listeners who supported Alex and who raised funds, who donated funds. I know it's near Christmas and everything else, and money's tight, but everything counts. And basically, in 2 weeks, we reached the funds for Alex. But you know what? There's one thing myself and Steve saying thanks for doing it, but it's better coming from the man himself. So we have Alex wanting to say thank you as well. Steve.
Okay, we're going to play that little clip now from Alex Collier.
Alan and Steve and Open Mind Radio. This is Alex Collier talking to you from Colorado in the United States of America. I wanted to just say thank you so much for your support and your help. I can't tell you what a miracle it is, and I am so incredibly grateful that words just simply cannot express how I feel as far as my level of gratitude. And allow me to be politically incorrect here and wish all of you a very Merry Christmas. and a Happy New Year, and I can't wait to be on the show in January. And I am so looking forward to talking with you folks and getting to know you and spending more and more time on the Open Mind Radio show. And it's just going to be great. I'm very, very excited to meet you all and talk and have a conversation. Thank you again, and again, Merry Christmas.
Okay, so there you go. A big thank you for Alex. Much appreciated. It is a big help. I don't think people realise and underestimate, what I meant to Alex, but it really did mean something. It really going to help him for the Christmas period. And it wasn't major amounts of money, but it was just, something to help him out big time, and him and his kids. So again, thank you to the listeners for doing that. It's much appreciated. Fantastic listeners at OYM. I know we keep saying it, but we're knocked down. We're floored by, the generosity, and we're just humbled by it, So I think we're just, what else can we say?
No, we can't say anymore. We actually rang Alex on, I think it was a Friday evening. Friday evening. Well, Friday evening airtime, Friday afternoon, Alex's time. We had a chat with him for probably about 10 minutes, and Alan had explained to him about the thermometer and the funds. And I have to say, the man, he sounded like he was close to tears. He did sound very overjoyed and humbled by the small donation. I mean, it really was only a drop in the ocean, I suppose. But it was thanks to everyone out there who's listening, both on OYM Radio and also on People's Internet Radio. So, a big thanks to everyone. You've all been very generous this side of Christmas. And as Alan said, it is a difficult time for a lot of people, and a lot of families are kind of finding it tough. And the fact that people could still, throw a couple of quid in the tip jar, in the kitty, for Alex, it's fantastic. So give yourselves a round of applause. Actually, go grab yourselves a beer.
Have a beer. Well, you know who you are, who donated. So thanks again for that. Much appreciated. Well, okay, onwards and upwards. Right. A great documentary out there. Was sent in by one of our listeners, Jeff, and it was all got to do with smart meters. It was very, very good. And the link is takebackyourpower.net/free-viewing. So Steve's going to put it up on the chat room there. A very good documentary about smart meters. All got to do with the science of it, and I suppose not the science. They didn't go too involved, didn't go too into the science, but basically they were showing smart meters actually catching fire and houses going on fire because of them, and people being forced to take the smart meters. Just unreal. And then people ending up having to get the company to take them back out. Now, the company who's installing the smart meters is a company called P&G. Now, if memory serves me well, wasn't there, P&G was what's that movie that was made of Julie Roberts played the woman?
Julie Roberts played a woman as opposed to a man. Aaron Brockovich. And the company, I believe, was P&G in that movie as well. So, interesting. Just interesting. So, Steve's put it up in the chat room there. A good documentary to have a look at anyway, all about smart meters. Right, Steve. Yes, I'm going to tell you some news. We have some news here in relation to BBC. And the BBC, seemingly Christmas tree lights can slow your Wi-Fi, warns the BBC watchdog Ofcom, as it releases an app that can check home broadband. The app samples wireless signals to see if data is flowing uninterrupted from routers to phones and tablets. The app is released alongside research which suggests Wi-Fi in 6 million homes and offices is not running as fast as it could do. The app also provides tips to help people spot what might be slowing down their Wi-Fi speed. Interference could come from other electronic devices, such as baby monitors, microwave ovens, Christmas fairy lights, said Ofcom in a statement. Christmas fairy lights, I kid you not. So if you're having any issue with your Wi-Fi, turn off that Christmas tree. Of course, I would have said if you're having trouble with your Christmas tree, turn off your Wi-Fi. Because then again, we're not big fans of Wi-Fi over here at OYM. But so Christmas tree lights interfering with Wi-Fi. Wow, what next?
Well, if you use Wi-Fi in your house, then obviously be aware of that. But we don't recommend it. We have our Wi-Fi switched off here in the house for obvious reasons, because it's dangerous. I mean, that's it, really.
Yeah.
It's all hardwired. How's your week, Steve?
Yeah, my week's been, it's had its ups and downs, let me say. Yes, well, I think this during the weekend actually. Dennis O'Brien has recently sold off Topaz. Anyone who's following Dobby and his Dennis O'Brien and his the lifestyle of the rich and famous,
rich and shameless, really.
Rich and shameless, yeah, and not paying his taxes. Seemingly he's recently sold off Topaz, and I believe it was his nephew. Seemingly his nephew, just before he sold it off, bought or invested in another, I think it was something like €3 million worth of shares before it was sold off. So seemingly Dennis Dobby, allegedly, I have to say allegedly because, we don't want them slapping injunctions on us. Seemingly, allegedly, he's going to, benefit from obviously selling off the company, and as is his nephew, because obviously he just bought 3.5 million worth of shares, so therefore he's going to, he's going to be looked after too. But someone is saying, that sounds a little bit like insider trading. The fact that he buys shares, then Dobby sells off the company. So, of course, somebody will make a complaint. It'll go somewhere to the highest court in the land, and then it'll be dismissed. And people say, "Oh, leave Dennis alone. He's a good boy. He's one of our own." And anyway. Yeah, so that's kind of what I've heard during the weekend. Anyway, beginning of this week, which was Monday, and it was after obviously last week's show, and I got a letter in the door. It was kind of looked like it was addressed to my house anyway, but it was addressed to the occupier, all capital letters, and I was kind of bemused when I read this. My wife rang me and she read this out to me, and I was bemused because it wasn't the standard TV license letter. This one was a little bit different. It was threatening the occupier with a search warrant that whoever these people were, they allegedly called to the address on the letter, and a lady answered the door, believed to be my wife. The guy identified himself, and she said she didn't recognise him, and she shut the door in his face. So they sent over a nice letter threatening me with a well, not me, the occupier, with a search warrant. And I have to say, the wording of it was as normal. It's kind of done in such a way with the spells and the spelling to instill fear. And normally I would just kind of slap on a return to sender sticker and back in the post. But this one, I read it and I was kind of, oh, hang on a second. Even though it wasn't personally addressed to me, it was the occupier. It still kind of, it was niggling away at me, gnawing at me, at something anyway, me fear bone. So I wasn't sure what course of action to do, whether to just slap a sticker and back in the post. So I actually I was on People's Internet Radio chat there during the week, and I had put a link up to the document, and a few people had obviously went off, had a look at it, and they just said, yeah, they'd seen this before, and basically just return to sender. So I slapped the sticker, the old return to sender sticker on it, and it taped up the envelope. So that's going back in the post. And I have to say, once you do that, the fear just kind of, as Harry says, it's reversing the headache. But once I put the sticker on it and I was ready to go back in the post, that little bit of fear that was niggling away it disappeared. And yeah, so that's going back in the post now in the morning. So I want to say thanks to the good lads and lassies over there on PIR for chewing the fat. Will be there during the week and just having a look at that and reassuring me. So there we go. That's kind of my week in a nutshell. How was your week?
Okay, I just have one thing before we get Simon on. Something that I talked to you about during the week. And have people ever heard of a product called Borax? Now, apparently Borax is like a washing powder type of, sodium bicarbonate soda. Yeah. Right? But it's a...
Sodium borate, you said to me, Jordan.
Sodium borate, right, yeah. Okay. But people are actually taking this in small doses because the pH of the actual product is 9.3. And there's a few people that I've kind of been on Facebook with, and they're saying that they've used it, and it's helped to get rid of a lot of things in the body, plus it helps with your weight and stuff like that. Now, what we're saying to you is we're just making you aware of this product called Borax, which is Borax, if you haven't heard of it, but you really need to do your research, because there might be different types again. There might be the good health food type, and there could be the stuff that industrial type where you don't touch, which will kill you. So you need to do your research on, and then, have a serious think about it. Myself and Steve just kind of heard about it, so we're going to be kind of looking into it and seeing what's going on. But I know Karen MacDonald, who's been on the show, does use it for her clients and herself. And then we know a couple of other people who are in the kind of radio business who are using it as well, and it has helped them. Now, we'd have to kind of get what version they're using rather than just going out and buying it, off the shelf, because, as I say, there could be different types. But if you go to a website called earthclinic.com/remedies/borax.html. So that's earthclinic.com/remedies/borax.html. Go over there, and apparently, there is a Borax website, a Borax conspiracy website there, and saying about Big Pharma's latest ploy to outlaw a natural cure for arthritis, osteoporosis, and tooth decay. And basically, this is what they're saying. And apparently, it has so many benefits. This Borax. So there's another one called growyouthful.com/remedy/borax.php. That's growyouthful.com/remedy/borax.php. And that's just another site about Borax. Just Google it anyway, and you'll see. And look on YouTube for videos regarding Borax. So just some information for you there.
Could you just maybe change your voice a little bit there?
Right.
Which one? Moira has just written in to say Alan has such a scary voice.
Scary? Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want to see it? You want to see him in person, Moira?
That's why when the politicians come to the door, they turn around very quick and head off. Right, okay. Being scary voice, that's a new one on me. There you go. I don't know. We'll ask Simon. Good evening. Simon. Good evening, Simon. How are you doing?
How you doing, lads? Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks.
I have a scary voice, Simon. Do I have a scary voice?
Well, I was giggling to myself when I heard that. No, not particularly, man. I don't think so.
Right, okay. I can see. Okay. I might have a job in Hammer House of Horrors then, doing some voiceovers. I don't know. Good evening, Simon. It's been ages since you've been on the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, I was surprised when we spoke off air a little earlier. I was surprised that it's been February 2014. That's just amazing. I thought it was earlier this year, but then again, maybe I smoked too much.
Yeah, no, it was actually February last year, which is, unbelievable. But listen, brilliant getting you back on. I know you've been very busy doing a lot of stuff, and you've been off the radar to a certain extent because things going on. But before we get into what you've been doing, what you've been up to, for any new listeners that are tuned into the show who don't know who Simon is, can you just give us a quick bio on your background and your experience?
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I'm an ex-banker, so I went into banking when I left school back in, 1987. So I went into banking 1987 with Coutts and Company, Queen's Bank, and after a couple of years there, I went into what is effectively called American retail banking. These are your kind of typical loan companies. So when you walk into a branch of, say, Santander or Lloyd's, and you see the open plan layout, that was the kind of layout and the kind of salesy style of banking that I was involved with back in, the late 80s, early 90s. And fast forwarding through to 2000, I left banking, went into mortgage broking, and ended up with a number of my own companies. And the credit crunch then came along in 2007, 2008 and wiped me out. And I changed one of the companies. I kind of fashioned it round to turn it into a claims management company where, you start arguing things like the PPI or the validity of a credit agreement, or things of that nature. And noticed, certainly when I came across the nature of money, myself and business partner, we'd got into some study. We'd suddenly learned that there was a bit of a problem with money, started using a few arguments on behalf of a client, and the reaction of the judge was quite amazing. Certainly not what you would expect. And that really sent me on a path which then connected me to, lots of other people that were researching, predominantly via the kind of Winston Shrout methodology of study. And there were a couple of guys over here that were doing various seminars. And, of course, one thing leads to another. I started meeting up with a lot of like-minded researchers, as it were. And of course, the more you research, the more you look, the more you see, the more you find. And it's sent me really on a pathway which, for me, has kind of, changed my outlook, changed my life, really. I think for the better. I wouldn't give it up for anything, really, in terms of the value, the wealth of information that I think I've kind of, sucked into my brain over the past 8 years or so. So yeah, that's really where I am.
And and obviously people need to know as well that you're an ex-bank manager from the Queen's Bank, which is Coutts.
Well, I wasn't a bank manager with Coutts, but I was a branch manager with some of the American retail banks. But I've worked for Coutts for 2 years. I had the old frock coat, the 18th century frock coat. Went through their initiation with the after 9 months in order to get the frock coat, where you basically drink yourself into oblivion with port. And but I had the wrong background, so there was probably no way I would ever have aspired to or would have ever achieved a position of branch manager within a 15 branch network, which is what Coutts had at that time. But I effectively became a branch manager in 1994 with a company which was called Beneficial Bank, now owned by I think it's HSBC own that now. I was responsible for staff. Come the year 2001, I was effectively responsible for something like 70 staff in broking. So I've managed a large number of staff. I was a qualified mortgage advisor, so I passed the old CMAP exam. And it's really a situation that's since kind of looking at money in a different way and getting to understand money. And I would point out that as a bank employee, I did not understand how money and currency worked. And I can pretty much, hand on heart, say with some confidence that I don't think 90% of bank staff actually have a clue what money is and how money or currency works. I don't think they have a clue. And that's because having worked with people, you get a general vibe as to what people are pretty much about that tend to end up working for a bank or ending up in a call centre or whatever the case may well be. And I know it's a little bit presumptive to say that on the part of many, but I doubt that most bank staff have got the first inkling as to how loans, currency, mortgages, all this kind of stuff works. I know that they probably think they know, and I know they probably think that from what they've been told and how they do the job, they think they know what the real mechanism behind their daily tasks is all about. But I don't think they actually have any grasp whatsoever on the truth.
Well, I've done that. I've gone into a local bank and I've asked the teller behind the counter that, do you understand fractional reserve banking? Do you know what that is? And they said no.
Yeah.
Really sums it up, really, doesn't it?
Well, I sent you guys an email before we came on. I sent you an email a couple of days ago, and I said, remind me about the standards. And that's kind of neatly leads me into it because, look, it's like anything. If you were to go to the doctors, right, or to the hospital, and you had to have an operation, right, and I said to you, okay, brilliant. Well, I tell you what, Alan, you've got a choice. You've got 2 surgeons on today. Okay, one of whom is brand new. And he passed all of exams. He got 51%. Brilliant. The other guy has been in practice for 20 years. He's got a lot of experience doing that particular operation. And when he took his exams, he got 100%. Which one would you want to operate on you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it's obvious. Yeah.
Right. So it's obvious, right?
Yeah.
Now the point is, when we are dealing with any organisation, not just banking, but when we're dealing with anyone. Who is it that we are, whose word are we taking? Is it that Joanne leaves school at the sprightly age of 18, having absolutely no life experience whatsoever, goes to work for the local council and is now telling you what to do? Now telling you how to live your life? Really? What, 18? I don't know about over in Ireland. In fact, tell a lie. I know that in Ireland, the level of education, certainly of the students, are probably far, more intelligent. They take their studies more serious than over here, I would say, generically speaking, and from my experience. But certainly over here, 18-year-olds, you'd be lucky to get a kind of as a response if you ask a question.
Yeah.
So, so to really just raise that as an issue, the point is who who are we taking advice from? Who are we allowing to tell us what to do? And what qualification do they have to do it in the first place? So whenever we go somewhere, should we not be inquiring as to, well, know your customer and all that? They want to know everything about us. So we should really know the advisor, shouldn't we? We should be knowing, well, where did you go to school? What exam grades did you get? What qualifications have you got? What professional qualifications have you got? What experience have you got? Let's see your appraisals. I want to see whether you've had any previous issues, whether you've made any previous mistakes, whether you've been involved in any previous negligence claims, whether you've had, disciplinary action taken against you, what your colleagues think of your skill level, and so on and so forth, what the general feedback has been. And we don't do any of that.
No, I think it's hard because a lot of people are going to the bank, as you know, either single or a couple, and they're looking for a mortgage, and the bank will kind of say, well, that's our terms and conditions. If you don't like them, then I'm sorry, we can't help you. And where are you going to get the money from? And that's the kind of dilemma we're all stuck in, is that we know we need the money. I mean, even looking at what a contract is. A contract is an agreement between two people that's, two or more people that's fully transparent. You go to the bank and you start saying, don't like that terms and condition, don't like that. And they say, well, if you don't like any of that, well then go to somebody else because their terms and conditions, like it or lump it. How can that be a proper contract?
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you actually get to, certainly if we're talking about a mortgage facility now, if somebody actually gets to look at the conditions prior to making an application for, and I say application for the mortgage, I know that's the way that it's phrased, but for anyone out there, that's not too sure what a mortgage is, the customer grants the mortgage, right? The customer grants the mortgage. It's the death pledge, okay? Pledge is a solemn promise, so the customer is the one that actually makes the mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you were allowed to actually have a look at terms and conditions prior to taking that further, or taking the relationship further with the bank, I'd be surprised, because I've journeyed around, when I was on my travels after getting into all this stuff, I've spent something like 4.5 years traveling around the country, hosting seminars, doing various talks, and so on and so forth. And wherever I kind of went around to, if I was staying overnight, if I had the opportunity, I would nip into town and I would excuse me, that's sorry, home phone going. I would take a trip down to the local bank and I would ask for their mortgage terms and conditions, their mortgage conditions. And without fail, I have never once been handed a set of conditions from any company. Now I've been into Lloyd's, I've been into Barclays, HSBC, NatWest, Santander, my favourites. I've been into all the major players, and not one branch of all the branches that I've gone into, and I would say that all in all, let's say that I've been into 60 different branches, right? Mixture of the different banks. 100% hit rate. No terms and conditions available. So how would anyone know what they're, get the phraseology, what they're applying for?
Yeah.
Okay, they don't know what they're applying for. And members of staff don't know how this stuff works. And in fact, I'm sad enough to keep, I hoard stuff quite a bit. That's the old habits of banking, where we had to keep and hoard records. And this will lead me on to a few, nice little kind of anecdotes really regarding what people are likely to receive in their letters when they're liaising with the bank. Well, we used to keep everything, right? We would keep everything, pretty much. And you'd have a set period of time as to when certain records would be destroyed. And you'd have a list in your policy manual as to when things were to be destroyed. And every month, audit checks took place. That was, what the branch manager's remit was. That's the branch manager's job, to actually conduct various audit checks and make sure that records are kept and so on and so forth. A whole host of these certain checks that we had to conduct. Now, going in to ask the bank or ask the banking staff, about a mortgage product, even the qualified members of staff. Remember, I was qualified, CMAP qualified. I think I got a distinction from memory. Passed the thing within 3 months. All right, as soon as it came out, took the course, passed it. Okay, to lead the way at the company where I was head of operations, and of course, a lot of other staff had to then follow suit. The point is, I've still got that course. And nowhere does it mention the power of attorney. And nowhere does it really explain what's going to be going on with this mortgage product, which raises a whole host of questions. And as I say, the hoarding bit, I've still got the manuals, which my study material, and this is going back to the year 2000. I've still got the study material sitting in the garage. So, the point is, if we're not going to have it explained as to what, for example, the hidden power of attorney is all about, and this is for anyone that's not aware, check your conditions on your mortgage. You're probably going to find that there is some kind of irrevocable power of attorney whereupon the bank or any of its staff or anyone that it nominates can do whatever they like in order to make the mortgage work, and they can do it in your name as the customer. All right?
Mm.
But ask them what they've done, and they won't tell you.
Mm.
Now, that presents a problem, but it also presents an opportunity. This is something I've been working on recently. I say recently, last 12 months. It presents a problem, but it does present an opportunity. And I don't know if you guys, you pay much attention to the White Rabbit Trust YouTube channel and what goes on there. I appreciate you probably have to keep a wide breast of information, or keep up with a wide breast of information across the board. So,
yeah.
But I stuck a couple of clips up there, one of which was from Judge Judy. And she was talking about a return of title. And I'm not going to say too much, but I think if anyone out there, if you have unsecured loans, credit cards, mortgage, whatever it is that you've got, and you want to potentially not pay it, right, for want of a better word, but you want to potentially call into question the validity of that relationship, right, without going into the money creation side of it, so we'll leave that to the side for a moment.
Yeah.
In terms of maybe bringing it to a head, watch the Judge Judy clip, okay, and that should give you an idea as to how to bring the whole thing to a head.
Interesting.
Okay.
I think I did see a post that you did put up with Judge Judy, but I have a certain level of knowledge, but I'm learning.
Right. Okay. Well, let's put it this way. I'll try to dive because I don't want to give too much away because I'm playing with some of these things at the moment.
Okay.
And where are we? I know that we were talking. I've got about 20 things going through my head at once, by the way, which is why I'm probably jittering all over the show. I'm out of practice with my radio shows. That's what it is.
Okay.
I know you mentioned that, before we came on air that you'd been liaising with Michael Abenicia and he'd been talking about mortgages and so on and so forth. And, I've been working with various solicitors over the past 12 months or so. I've been working with a number of industry professionals and also professional negligence solicitors who actually sue other solicitors, and they'd actually been involved in some pretty big mortgage cases, which involved, shall we say, smaller fraud rings than the banking fraud ring, right?
Okay.
Smaller fraud rings, for example, brokers that were falsifying valuations and trying to get people in investment schemes and all this kind of stuff, buy-to-let properties and so on and so forth. And these firms of professional negligence solicitors had sued other solicitors, got them kicked out of the society, maybe bankrupted, and so on and so forth. So there are some good guys out there, all right, that do solicitors. And it kind of, reinforces my conclusion that, people are people. It doesn't matter, the people that are linked up or associate with themselves with the conscious community, there are lovely people. There's a lot of lovely people. There are some absolute morons, okay?
Yeah.
And that just mirrors and reflects the split and the diversity of the population generally, all right? You've got every type of people out there, and it's exactly the same in the conscious community as it is anywhere,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when it comes down to, actually dealing with some of these issues, okay, unsecured loans. I know that one of the things, say unsecured loans and mortgages. I know one of the things that bank staff will come back with is that they've maybe destroyed the documentation. Right? You want to have a look at the documentation. The usual thing we say is, well, proof of claim, proof of loss. Proof of claim, proof of loss, and the bank will turn around and say, the member of staff will turn around and say, well, sorry, but we destroyed it. Right?
Mm.
Now, I've worked in banking 20 odd years, I can tell you right now, nowhere have I ever worked where staff or the policy has required staff to go to the customer's file, and from all of the paperwork that the staff members go through in order to grant the loan, the alleged loan, to the customer, all the processing, the application, the credit search, the job references, the pay slips, the bank statement checks, this, that and the other, all the analysis that we go through, maybe 40 to 50 pages worth of gumph in order to grant an unsecured loan to a client. And apparently, members of staff then go back to those customer files, pull out the most important document that they could potentially have in the file, all the work built up to, which was the putting of the signature where X marked the spot on the dotted line, right? And it all built up to that crescendo, only for the member of staff to later go back to the file, pull out the legal document, and destroy it for some unknown reason.
Well, they securitize it, don't they?
It's absolute poppycock. That's what it is. It's absolute bollocks. And bollocks meaning confusion, the Latin for confusion, right? So it's absolute bollocks. So the point is, I've never, ever been to customer files to take out one particular document, the credit agreement, and destroy it. Never ever. Now, I mean, obviously, you're talking about securitization. Yeah, a lot of banks do securitize. But here's a question. Here's a question for you guys. Okay, because I want to try and point out one or two obvious obvious flaws to people out there. But I want to kind of do it in a nice kind of prompting way, or an encouraging way. And that is, when we go to pay off a loan or a mortgage, right? Way back when, we used to call them redemption figures that you'd get from the bank, right?
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
You ever heard of that? Redemption figure?
Yeah.
Yeah, redemption figure. Okay, but somewhere along the line, redemption figures changed to settlement figures. Right. Now, I remember that because I was working for the bank, right? And unlike some of the critics out there, I've actually worked for a bank. Okay, so I can kind of say firsthand what happened at the company where I worked, right?
Okay.
As opposed to, there are various parties out there that make commentary on this kind of stuff and have never set foot inside a bank, apart from as a customer. So they wouldn't really know what goes on behind the scenes. But that aside, I remember back in late 80s, I think it was early 90s actually, the phraseology changed. It changed from redemption, or it was being changed, maybe it was over a couple of years that it was coming in. But it was changing from redemption to settlement. And as a member of staff, I thought it all meant the same. But it doesn't. You see, to redeem means to buy back, right?
Okay.
So think about it. I mean, to redeem means to buy back. To settle means to give away or to put into trust.
Okay.
Okay, so imagine the scenario. You go to a pawnbroker. Okay, you go to a pawnbroker, you need some money. And in fact, I've got a clip up there from Judge Rinder on the White Rabbit Trust YouTube channel. Talks about fiduciary duty. And funnily enough, the case that he's dealing with is where the gran had been given a ring to look after by her granddaughter. And the gran was in the habit of going down to the pawnbroker, taking jewellery down there and buying it back. And somewhere along the line, this ring, which had belonged to the granddaughter, disappeared. And the granddaughter was suing the gran, right? Lovely.
Okay.
So, So the point is, Judge Rinder talks about fiduciary duty. So, imagine the scenario. You've got a gold watch, you need some money fast. You need it fast. You don't want to go to a payday loan company, so you nip down to the local pawnbroker. And the pawnbroker says, well, look, I'll tell you what, I'll give you £100 advance, or £100 loan against that watch, right? So you leave the watch with me as security, and I'll give you £100. And you're going to have 3 months to come back and buy it back, but you're going to buy it back at £130. That £30 is the interest. But if you don't buy it back in 3 months, it's now mine, and I can sell it. Agreed?
Okay.
That's the kind of way it works. Yeah, that's the kind of way it works. Brilliant. So, after 3 months comes, you pop back down to the pawnbroker with your £130 to buy back your gold watch. You hand the money over. The pawnbroker says, "Thanks very much. You've paid back the loan, you've paid back the interest." And then he tries to send you on your way. And the customer, the customer says, "Well, hold on a second, what about the gold watch?" And the bank and the pawnbroker says, well, that's mine. I destroyed it. You wouldn't be happy, would you?
Well, of course, no. No.
Now here's a question. If he destroyed that watch, would you be obliged to pay him?
No. Not at all.
Right. So let's have a look at this, right? Now let's translate this into a loan, or perhaps a mortgage. A credit agreement is called a note, right? Promise to pay.
Okay.
Okay, look at section 189, Consumer Credit Act 1974. Under the definition of the word security, you'll see numerous words, including mortgage, charge, lien, note. Note means promissory note, promise to pay. And a promise to pay is the same as an agreement to pay, because either way, the bank gets the money. Right? So it's the same difference.
Okay.
Now, not just me saying that, Barron's fifth edition law dictionary verifies the same, says the same. So, you lodge a security, you sign the credit agreement, you lodge that security with the bank. The bank gives you a loan, all right? We won't go into whether there was or wasn't a loan at the moment, but let's pretend the bank gives you a loan. Okay, now, there's a liability, right? There's a liability, they've given you a loan. But there's also an obligation to pay that liability. For example, let me just go off at a tangent. You walk outside, you find out that your car has been smashed up. Clearly, there is a liability. Right? There's been some damage. There's a liability. The question is, who has the obligation to put it right? Did anyone see it happen? Did anyone see the vandal? Did anyone see a car crash into your car? And did they take the registration plate? You know, who is it that you're going to pin that liability on? Right? So you've got the liability and you've got the obligation to pay it. Okay? Right. So you can apply this to most things. You know, think council tax. There may or may not be a liability, but who has the obligation to pay it? Anyway, back to our loan. So we've gone to the bank for the loan. We've lodged a security in the form of a credit agreement, right, with the bank. We've taken the money and we've gone and spent it. Now, for those of you, or for those people out there that have done, you know, maybe a little bit of study, or for those that are maybe not aware, on the books of the banker, on the accounts, that credit agreement has a book cash value.
I was going to say, is that a statutory instrument that they could use to sell on?
They can sell that on because it's property. You see, because the moment that you hand that to the bank, it at once becomes the bank's property.
Yeah.
Now, while it's in the hands of a banker, he can do whatever he wants with it. Right? I mean, it's just like putting money into your current account. You can hand over £100, and the thing is, the moment that you hand it over to the bank, it at once becomes the property of the banker. All right?
And people don't realise that. People actually don't realise. They think that the money in the bank is actually still their money.
No, it's not. No one out there, categorically, no one who's got money in a current account, savings account, shareholder account, whatever account you want to call it, no one has got money in the bank apart from the banker.
Yeah.
Because the moment you hand it to the banker, it at once becomes the property of the banker, right?
Yeah.
Now again, you know, the thing is, you don't know what the banker does with it, right? All he's got to do is, by the time you come round to draw the money out, he's got to have it. But he'll put that money to good work. He'll put it to work, right? So he's making interest and profit and everything on your money while he's got it, right?
Yeah.
But as long as it's available for you to withdraw, what do you care?
Exactly.
Well, you should care. People should care because, of course, what's the banker using it for? I mean, what if he was wiping his backside on it and then he gives it back to you? Would you care? I'm sure you might. People out there might. So the point is, what people have got to understand is that the moment you hand something to somebody else, it at once becomes their property. Property is, possession's 9/10 of the law. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you do your agreement with the bank and you give it to them and they turn that into an instrument which they can sell on, or they can, special performance vehicle and all that. Yeah. So they now own it.
They own it and they can do what they want with it. But here's the question. Here's the burning question. Now remember our pawnbroker example, right? They've got the credit agreement. They can sell it on if they wish. It's their property while they've got it. But here's the burning question. How can the customer buy it back if the bank hasn't got it?
Has anyone ever gone and said, we want to buy back?
What do you think I do?
Yeah.
Right, okay, now this is what I do.
And they're saying, obviously, they destroyed the paperwork.
And I say, well, that's brilliant.
So
And
there's
I say,
no,
well,
there's
if you're
no debt.
operating, I say, well, then I say this. I go to the Judge Judy video and I say, well, brilliant, you've destroyed it. So, if you're operating, you see, the thing is, if the bank comes back and says, look, it's our property, I will then say to the banker, well, that's great. If you're operating on the basis that the moment I handed that over to you, it once became your property, I agree with you. It is your property, right? But just explain something to me. Just explain it. How do I buy it back if you haven't got it? You see, the thing is, they may have the possession of that document, and they may have the authority meaning the ability to do it, the control, right? They're in the position of control. They've got the piece of paper. As I said, they can wipe their backside on it for all I know. They could turn it into an aeroplane and throw it around the room. They could fold it up and wedge it under a desk for 2 years. I don't know. But the point is, if they don't have it in order for me to buy it back, do I have an obligation to pay them?
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Well, let's put it back into the position, into the example of the pawnbroker. He's taken your watch, he's given it away to his gran for a Christmas present, whatever he's done with it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He hasn't got it for you to buy it back. So, do you have to give him the money?
Well, no. In theory,
No.
no. You don't.
Well, why no? And if he's destroyed it, or sold, or broken part of it, or if he's only got the strap left and not the face of the watch, well then you might pay him something, but you're not going to pay him all of it. I mean, think of a mortgage when they split it off into various different parts and components, and they sell bits on and other bits not, right?
That we are not supposed to know of.
Well, here's a question. You know, if you check the terms and conditions of a mortgage, right? What's a mortgage?
Well, it's a loan to get money for a property.
No. I mean, it is,
Yeah.
but that's the loan from you to them.
Yeah.
That's the mortgage. The mortgage, according to banks, is the offer letter, added with the mortgage deed, added with the conditions. But those conditions evoke a power of attorney. So the mortgage now, in order for you to buy it back in its entirety and get a full return of title meaning rights, so to get all of your rights back, you're going to have the offer, the deed, the conditions, and every instrument created under the power of attorney. And you're going to have that all available, ready for redemption, to buy back. Because if you're not buying it back, you're settling, which is you're giving away.
So have you approached the bank and said to them, talk to them about this and say, right, I want to buy this back, and they're turning around to you and they're saying, oh, we've destroyed it?
Well, I am at the moment approaching various banks with the intention of buying back the mortgage, right?
Okay.
And the reactions that I have got, one reaction was to knock £40,000 off of 110 grand balance.
Okay.
Okay. So that's a 35% reduction in the balance, right? Or
Right.
thereabouts.
Okay. Yeah.
A few other reactions I've had are solicitors phoning me up and just hurling verbal abuse down the phone,
Right. Okay.
which to me says that I'm touching a raw nerve.
Obviously, you've rattled a cage somewhere.
So in my experience, when that happens, you've gone somewhere they don't want you to go, and you've effectively backed them in a corner, and they come out fighting. That's all they can do. They can come out fighting because they've got nowhere left to run, nowhere to hide, because you've hit the nail on the head. In my experience, that's the way I see it, right? And so what I'm doing at the moment, and I'm testing this, is that I'm testing various approaches. And I heard you say it earlier actually in the build up to this, which is when you mentioned the word spells, and the words and so on and so forth. And for me, it's all about getting the spell right. It's asking the right question.
Yep.
Right? You've got to ask the right question. You've got to word it in a way that becomes so powerful they can't answer it. But it reveals in itself, by their inaction or their inability to do something, it reveals the fact that they're as guilty as hell. And the point is, I know you mentioned when we were talking about Michael Benicia, the conveyancers, and Michael was saying that the conveyancer, is maybe at the heart of all this, and I agree. And if you check out the Council of Licensed Conveyancers and their handbook for their members, you'll see that a conveyancer has a duty to protect all of his clients' interests. All the client's interests. Which means that if he's not protecting all of your interests as a client, that's negligence, right?
True. But we've also heard that the likes of solicitors, when they actually go through the bar and do their exams and all that their loyalty, regardless whether they have clients or not, is to the court.
Well, their first allegiance when appearing at court is to the court.
Yeah.
Right. Second allegiance is to their society, as I understand it. Third allegiance is to you, the client. But the point is, you see, the thing is, the court. I'm beginning to, I'm looking at this. Maybe the way that I look at this now is slightly different, and it does. I guess for people out there, as you go through some of this stuff, and as you start contemplating it and playing around with it in your head, or as you go out and start testing some of the theories and start playing with some of the concepts, depending on how things go, you may well change your perception on how certain things, work, and you get a certain take on things. And I've got no doubt that my take on things, my take on things has changed over the last, maybe 8 years. Generally speaking, it's exactly the same, but you get certain little, changes as you go along. Certain little things, you get a little glimmer of an extra, bit of information or something, and it just changes the way that you look at things. And that's probably a bad explanation, but the point is, the way I look at this is that law, if you look at law as being unopposed motion, right? So in other words, if someone slaps you around the face, right? Maybe a bad example, but someone slaps you around the face and you say nothing about it.
Yeah.
That's the law, right?
That's it.
The earth, does anyone stop the earth from moving around the sun? No, so that's the law. It's only when someone comes back and says, no, you did something wrong, you shouldn't have done that we now have a question. And that question mark has to be then resolved at a court, in a court proceeding according to law, whatever it is, whatever jurisdiction. There's lots of different jurisdictions you can go to, and there's lots of different ways that you can resolve the point and the question. But, you then have that question mark. But until the time when you come back and say no, or you raise an issue about it, it's perfect law. Yeah.
So, do we always say that everything's kind of presumed and assumed until you turn around and say, I do not consent, or you have a question with it? Because
it might be presumed in their head. I mean, there are lots of presumptions going on all over the show.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's the thing, and that's what we say to people. This whole idea, and we've been coming across this more and more, is for people to actually realise. And we had Dr. Rima Lebeau on a couple of weeks ago talking about how powerful I do not consent. That we have to stand up, because if we don't say no, well, the answer is yes. And because it's presumed yes, if we don't turn around and say no, well, then they'll just presume that it's yes, and then, shoot ahead with what they have to do, regardless of whether it's the bank or whether it's the law or whatever, So, asking questions, saying no, and then asking questions, then they go, oh, right, okay, this person kind of is getting it now, because they're not just accepting it, they're actually asking questions. And there's a lot going on now. More and more people are beginning to wake up. Lay litigants in court standing up for themselves in front of registrars and judges rather than hiring solicitors. So there is a massive movement going on. There's a massive awakening going on at the moment, especially over here that we see it in Ireland. And we have groups like the Hub and the National Land League educating people regarding the law and how to deal with the banks and people staying in their houses and not being evicted. So it's amazing what is going on, and people like yourself coming on helping to educate our listeners and ourselves is really it's great to see, and it's we need to do more and more of that and educate people about it. Now we have a few questions come in, so we're going to go over to Steve. Steve has all the questions there. I want to talk to you about the inland revenue and paying the tax, because I know that you've done a few videos on ringing up the inland revenue in the UK, which is near enough the same as over here, and asking where the law is that says you have to pay tax on your labour. And so we have to talk about that before the end of the show, because in Ireland it's the same thing over here. So, we'll talk about that. But the questions we have, over to you, Steve.
Okay, well, the first thing I need to say is great information, Simon. I'm really enjoying sitting here just listening and just being part of it. You mentioned the word earlier on, and you said it was the Latin word for confusion. I just want to say that I've checked that out, and the Latin word for confusion is confusionum. So it's not the B word.
It's B-O-L-L-E-X.
That's probably how it's spelled, but it's pronounced confusionum. Anyway,
well, certainly where I was looking, it's Borax. Sorry, I think I maybe pronounced the second part a little bit wrong, but it was Borax or Bollocks.
Okay.
The Latin for confusion. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that kind of sounds in. That kind of ties in with what we used to call confusion, where I came from when I was growing up.
You and us both. Anyway, look, we move on. There are a couple of questions. I just want to mention. We actually had an interview a couple of years ago, and we had a lot of books actually donated to us by Marcus McKeown. And just in dealing with the banks, Marcus always said to us that when you're in negotiations or you're in talks with the bank and you're brought into the back room, and he said there's always fear in the room. There has to be fear. And he said a lot of the time the bank are trying to make you afraid of them. And he says once you know their game, and I think that this is probably what you do as well, once you know their game and how to play them at their own game, then you reverse that. So now you're not in fear of them, but he said there must be fear in the room, and if you now do not fear them, then they must fear you, and that's a very uncomfortable place for the bank.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, again, it's been a long time since I was on here, but last year I went down to Santander, Southend, armed with 6 female witnesses, and I had a chat with the branch director, and he was, excuse my French, crapping himself. Yeah. He was shaking. I mean, this is the kind of, I don't know, maybe it's my reputation now, I don't know, precedes me, but certainly as far as Santander staff are concerned, they don't want to talk to me. They seem to be terrified when I go in there and I ask some questions. And it's not difficult questions. I mean, I'm not going to ask a technical, legal technicality or something like that. I'm asking very basic questions. And so much so that this guy was panicking. I recorded it all, obviously. Yeah. He, apart from the fact that he got very, very hot, his collar was getting very hot under the collar. He was sweating profusely. We weren't sweating. I was wearing a coat, and normally I get quite hot. I like it nice and cool, but I wasn't sweating. But this guy was. He obviously felt under a lot of pressure, and he effectively, when I pointed out to him that page 26 of the Santander Staff Handbook requires all members of staff to protect all customers and the legal entity Santander UK plc from all acts of fraud, whether internal or external. And I asked him whether he was prepared to stick to that, which is part of his contract of employment. And he basically turned around and just said, I'm not going to do it. And I said, yeah, but you realise you're breaking your contract. And he said, yep. Now, if he breaks his contract of employment with Santander, the legal entity, how can the legal entity be keeping its contract with me as a customer?
Yeah, well, obviously it can't.
It can't, right? Because the members of staff, obviously, look, Santander doesn't exist. It's just the idea. And this is what was bringing me on to another thing, when I talk about the standards, the standards, think about it. We call it a corporation or a bank or whatever you're talking about, but it's a company. Right, now, company of men is an army. And they tend to have a flag or the colours, which is the standard, the banner under which they stand. It's the same for every company. They have a standard. They have their banner. And, very, very big in paintballing when you have to catch the enemy flag, but that used to be the case way back when, throughout history, or the high story, where armies have sought to, symbolically destroy the enemy or beat the enemy by capturing their flag. Right? And you get guys, it's a big thing in America, right? Where they've got the guys holding up the flag or pushing the flag back up, right? For, what was that, the Independence, War of Independence, whatever? I don't know. But, you've got this iconic kind of scene, maybe World War I don't know what it was, but you've got these soldiers and they're trying to push the flag back up. So there's a lot of attention, a lot of importance put on the banner, the standards, the flag, the colours of the company, of the regiment, of the regiment, right? So the point is, what are the standards of the company? Well, it's all the strap lines, it's all the glossiness that they say that they stick to. It's their mission statement. It's their, it's what they aim to do. It's their ethos. And it's our job to make each member of staff stick to those standards. That's our duty. That's our job, is to make them stick to that. And if they don't, HR, this is what I do now, been doing this for a fair while. Stick me through to human resources. I need to have a word and issue a grievance about you. If you're not going to do your job, which in turn means that if you're not going to keep your contract of employment, if you're not going to keep your side of the bargain with regards to your contract with your employer, then your employer, by pure definition, cannot keep its contract with me. So you need to stick me through to human resources because I've got a bit of a grievance and I'm sorry, but your job may be on the line.
And how does that go down?
That goes down like a lead balloon. They don't like it. They do everything possible to stop it. But the point is, whether you get hung up on or not, and if these videos ever see the light of day, I mean, I've been making a lot of videos over the last 2 years. And if some of these see the light of day, honestly, they're hilarious. I think they're really funny. But the reaction, the staff don't like it. But you see, this is the way I play the game.
Mm. No, it's a good way to approach it. But listen, we are conscious that we have questions for you.
Yeah,
so let's shoot over to the questions.
Okay, right, okay. Well, we may get back to that one later. OB1 on People's Internet Radio chat room, he said there earlier, when we were talking about destroying documents in the bank, he said the bank, as far as he's aware, the bank officials do not say it's destroyed, they say it's dematerialized. Are you familiar with that one?
What, Star Trek, is it?
That sounds like Star Trek, where it moves from one place to another place, which is probably true. There's only one company in 20 years of banking that I was aware of that used to, and it's not first-hand knowledge that I had, but it's basically, I was told this repeatedly, that the Halifax used to scan in all their mail. Whether they used to then destroy their mail afterwards, I don't know. But all I can say is, how many companies have I worked for banking? Coutts, 1, 2... 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 financial companies, and not one of them destroyed any documents. Even if they scanned it and had a paperless office, they still had customer files, which they would have the paper in. So I do not know of one bank that would physically, where they would get their staff to go and pick that document out. Of all the documents, why pick that out to destroy it?
Yeah, it's the same here. It's the same here, Simon. I mean, the place where I work, it's not a bank, but even where I am, we have to keep every document. It's mandatory that we have to keep it for, I believe, 7 years.
That's right, 7 years. It's a legal requirement.
It's a legal requirement. Yeah. So for someone to say in the bank we've moved it or dematerialized or destroyed, a lot of people will just go in and when they hear that information, they go, oh, okay, and they don't question it because a lot of people here. They think that, if you work in a bank, that's the occupation that's next to God. I mean, my dad said to me a long time ago that when he was younger and he was going for his first mortgage, and that was back in 1968, he said that you couldn't go into a bank in your working clothes. You had to make an appointment to go into the bank. And they used to, like, if you went in your I don't know, your civvies, they wouldn't let you in. Especially if you're going in to apply for a mortgage, you had to be suited and booted to go in and chat to the branch manager.
Well, look, at the end of the day, the clue's in the question. You go in for an appointment, they're appointing you. They're appointing you in a position, and that position's probably going to be trustee debtor, right?
Yeah.
They're positioning you in a situation where you're going to end up thinking that you owe them money. Now, don't get me wrong, general bank staff, certainly, the case for me, I didn't know any of this stuff. Right? I didn't, any kind of fleeting questions that passed through my mind were quickly dispensed with because, of course, you've got to hit your target. And so you might, allow your mind to wander from time to time, but it quickly comes back to focus because if you don't hit your targets that month, you're sacked.
Yeah.
Right? And it's as simple as that. So my mind, really, when I was a banker, didn't really wander apart from wanting to do a good job and wanting to know what I was doing, what the products were, how they worked, and so on and so forth. So I would read I went to the extent of I'd spend my lunchtimes reading the policy manual. I was that sad. I would read the policy documents. I would read the credit agreements. The error of my ways way back when, as a youngster, 20 whatever, was that I would consider my job, because I didn't understand the words or they didn't seem to make sense on the back of the legal documentation, I would consider what I did during the day, and I would fudge what I did into the words. In other words, I'd look at the words and say, well, that's what I actually do is X, Y, Z, so that must mean that. Yeah. That must be referring to what I'm physically doing. And, of course, that is a massive presumption because when a member of staff is taught to do their job, they don't spend all their time going through the policy manuals, right? They don't do that. They go and sit with Joanne, and Joanne will sit with them for a month and train them up. But here's the question. If Joanne does it wrong, how is the new starter going to be taught? They're going to be shown how to do it wrong.
Yeah.
Right, now this happens, right? As a manager, as someone who used to manage a lot of staff, right, I'd noticed this. It used to drive me mad, right? It used to drive me crazy. And that's why my job used to have to be one of keeping a constant monitor and constant eye on what the staff were getting up to and going into their files, into their workloads and making sure they were doing things properly as the way that I wanted them to do it, right? Because what they would do, what staff naturally do, is they look to cut corners. They don't do it on purpose. They're looking for maybe better ways, quicker ways, this, that and the other. But all too often, you know, someone cuts a corner. Maybe they should have done it. Maybe they shouldn't have done it. Maybe it wasn't according to the policy. But they get away with it, and sooner or later, they do it again. And then because they keep getting away with it and no one pulls them up on it, it becomes the norm. And before you know it, everyone's doing it. But it bears no correlation to the policy. Right?
Right, yeah.
So easy. I've seen it happen a gazillion times, right? So the point is, what goes on in a bank, what goes on in any company, doesn't necessarily bear any correlation whatsoever to the policy, right? And here's the second thing. All of the documentation, let's talk about, you know, the banking industry, the insurance industry, right? Let's talk about all those industries which have any kind of description as to how products work and so on and so forth. If the language written on those documents is legalese, which it is, how can a member of staff even have an opinion about how these products work unless they are legally qualified as a solicitor or barrister?
They can't.
Well, this is one of the challenges that Ben does in court, I believe, is to have a comparable witness, a competent witness who can actually talk about what's going on. And there never is a competent witness. There never seems to be one.
Of course, but you've got to ask the right questions in order to get that and bring that to the surface, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you just ask their name, well, that's not going to bring to the surface the fact that they're incompetent to bear witness, right? So the point is, when you break it down, right, this comes into income tax. This comes in, you know, one of the things with income tax. It's asking the right questions. So, for example, you know, a member of staff writes out and starts telling you X, Y, Z. Oh, you got to do this. Si, you got to do this. I want this from you. You owe me this. You owe me this obligation. You got to do so on and so forth. Brilliant. No worries. First and foremost, I want to make sure there's a signature on the letter that comes out, so I make sure it hasn't been sent in error. So if you ever get a letter with no signature, write back and say, look, I just want to make sure this is not a computer error. I know computers, you know, sometimes someone presses the wrong button, the wrong letter goes out. So can you just sign it to make sure that it's, so I can see some thought has gone into it and so that I know it's actually you intended to send it. And then once it's been signed, you go back to the member of staff that signed it. And if they're signing signature, job title, company name, they're personally liable for that.
Yeah, but
that's personally liable.
That's why they don't do it, because they know if there's fraud involved. Same with credit cards, isn't it?
Well, you see, the thing is, you know, the big, you know, number one question is, well, with all due respect, can you just verify where you're getting all this information from, and are you telling me to do this? And if so, when did you qualify? When did you get your legal qualification, solicitor or barrister? Because if you're the one telling me all of this stuff, then I now, once I've got the letter in my possession, well, I now have prima facie evidence of the fact that whoever it is at the company is, you know, practicing law without a license. and that sounds like a criminal offence to me. So the point is, you can nip these things in the bud, right? And again, I say you can. There's nothing stopping from any ignorant member of staff over at whatever company just carrying on with what they're doing, right? There's no silver bullet. I mean, the silver bullet, if anything, is you, the people, and your willpower to continue and stand up and go against it and say no. Because, you know, as you said earlier, Alan, you know, if you don't say no, you just said yes. So we have to say no in some way, shape or form. But no kind of offends people. That upsets them. So, you know, I like to kind of, you know, metaphorically put my arm around them and say, look, you know, I'm on your side. I'll do anything that, you know, that you want, as long as I can verify that I have an obligation to do it and that there's no mistake been made, you know, because as I always say, you know, I've got no recollection of this kind of stuff. I've got bad memory. You can't blame me for having, I'm not breaking the law by having a bad memory.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's something that, People's Internet Radio have been, and everybody says document and verify the obligation. You have to do what you need to do. And again, never say you won't pay. You always say, I will pay, but I have a few questions for you to answer first.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you let fly with some killer questions.
Exactly,
right?
And that's the way it works. Well, listen, I know we have a lot of questions here, and we want to help. We want to answer the questions for all our listeners as much as we can. So we're going to try and get through them as quick as we can. So sorry about, I'm just watching the time. We want to get these, because there's some valid questions that people want, and they're quite interesting. So it'd be good.
Okay, well, you fire, and I'll treat it like mastermind.
Right, go ahead, Steve.
Okay, OB1 on People's Internet Radio. At what point in the conveyancing is the promissory note hypothecated, allowing a bank to issue a financial instrument?
Oh my God! Right. Well, all I can say is think of the mortgage, right? The mortgage, death pledge. Pledge is a solemn promise. So depending on how you look at it, the fact that the mortgage deed evokes this power of attorney in the conditions, the document, in a sense, the document can be whatever it wants to be. It's a wild card. It's a joker. So the moment that goes into the possession of the bank, effectively the promissory note has hit the bank. That's the way I look at it.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
If that makes sense. If that answers that question. Okay, so the mortgage document is like the Three Musketeers, right? The offer, the deed, and the conditions together is the mortgage.
Yeah.
Right, so it's the Three Musketeers, all for one, three for one, or all for one, whatever the saying is. Right? But you've got the hidden one, you've got D'Artagnan. The D'Artagnan is the power of attorney, which opens up another gateway and a whole load of other documents we don't know about. And all of that added together is the mortgage.
Right, okay. Very good, yeah.
Right, so that's why I like the Musketeers, euphemism as such.
Usual way to do it. Okay, Steve.
Right.
Okay, and staying on the subject of mortgage, agent is wondering, how can you have a mortgage if the name you're using isn't yours, as it's based on the birth cert, which is copyright to the Crown?
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. What if you didn't grant a mortgage ever in the first place? And what if the bank check out the definitions on your conditions, right? Check out the conditions and the definitions. Check out we, us, ours. Sorry, we, us, our. That's the bank. And who that can be. Because as far as I'm concerned, the customer can actually become we, us, and our. And then when you look at you and yours, right? Can the bank become you? Yes, because it's got the power of attorney.
So does it flip? Does it work both ways?
Well, hold on. What is the service you're actually paying for with a mortgage? You're not paying for a loan. And it's not a true mortgage in the sense of the word mortgage, which was where you handed, like a pawnbroker scenario, you handed the security to the lender. That's a proper mortgage, right? I mean, mortgage, death pledge. If you borrow some money and you don't pay it back, you end up dead. That's death pledge. Right? So, the point is, when you're handing the security to the bank, right, way back when, if we were to do a proper mortgage, it would mean that you never get to live in your home for 25 years until you've paid the loan. That's a proper mortgage, where they keep the security until you've paid the loan. Well, that wouldn't work in modern era with people wanting to live in their homes while they pay for it. Right? So here's the question. Is your home ever part of the mortgage? No. Are you the bank? Yes. Is the bank you? Yes. What's the mortgage service you are actually paying for? It's got nothing to do with the loan. Pretty much nothing to do with the loan. The illusion of the loan has got everything to do with it, because this is the way it works. You apply, they send you an offer letter, right? The offer contains the terms, okay? You accept the terms, and you then exchange, and you go ahead with you execute the mortgage deed, and once everything is completed, you are left in certain conditions. You're left in a state of mind, right? Which is why, it's like they say about possession and repossession. Well, yeah, they possess the mortgage. They've already possessed the mortgage the moment you handed the paperwork to them. So if I pass it from my possession in my right hand to my left hand, I repossess it. Right. When you come to me if I'm the bank, when you come to me for a loan, I am already hypnotizing you into making you think that I extend loans. That's possession. However, when I then threaten to take your property off of you, which you have to abandon those bricks and mortar, right? Property. You have to abandon that, right? So if you have to abandon it, then in order to make you abandon it, I have to repossess your mind to make you believe that you have to hand it over to me. And lots of people willingly go down to the bank and hand their keys back because they can't take the pressure and the stress, and I understand why, of all the threats and this, that and the other. And they give up and they hand the keys back.
But it's also the threats from the solicitors and the sheriffs, and when you try and say to them, listen, especially from an Irish constitution point of view, that this is, in our constitution, our house is a dwelling. It's not a house, it's a dwelling. In our constitution, then that's protected under our constitution.
Right,
but
well, you see, look, what's a house? A house is not bricks and mortar. You see, look, at the end of the day, home comes from the French homme, man. So what are you? If man is your home, what are you? I mean, obviously you could say, well, the wife, my man is my husband, but talking to you, whether you consider yourself to be the soul, the spirit, whatever, right? At the end of the day, your home is where you already are. You're already in your home, which is the body, right?
Yeah.
So we're in man, right? Now, the point is, way back when, people were going to be wandering the plains and moving around from place to place. They can't pin anything on you because you're not staying in one place. Nowadays, we all live in our prison cell, albeit the fact that we decorate it the way that we want to decorate it, but we're not allowed to extend it the way we want to extend it. We need permission for that. So the point is, we're allowed to decorate our prison cell the way that we want to decorate it, right?
Yeah.
And in defending that, which we call it our home, right? The point is, we would have to technically abandon that. Now, I appreciate that you've got sheriffs and solicitors and this, that and the other all applying loads of pressure. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you can't stop anyone. I can't stop anyone from turning up at my front door, cracking me over the head with a hammer and coming in and taking all my stuff if they so wanted to do that. Right? So when people out there think that they've got security and peace of mind, have you really? It's all in your head, because anyone can come along and do anything. Really?
Yeah.
At any point in time, right? It's just that you're not expecting it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. It's just because, the bank hasn't said that they're going to send someone, so you don't expect it. But it can still happen. So this sense of security, I was told by one of my old bosses, job security is in your head. So the point is, my line, I can only tell you my way of approaching it, right? And my way of approaching it is this. If a member of staff crosses my radar and comes out with a load of baloney, as far as I'm concerned, I will be doing my utmost to get them sacked.
Okay.
That's it. You muck with me, that's your job on the line. I'll give you some chances, I'll try and talk with you, and I'll try and reason with you, but if you want a beef with me, that's great, but it's not my job on the line. So what I'll do is I'll collate the evidence, and when I'm dealing with a bank, I know to call their bluff, I know to call their hand. It's a game of poker.
So does this apply to solicitors and sheriffs, and you could apply the same process?
Why not?
That if they're not doing their job and what they're supposed to do, then you try and deal with it.
Well, here's a beautiful one. You ready for this?
Go on.
I'm going to give you a big tip now for people listening out there. Wait for this one. Right. So, really simple. Really simple. Yes or no, must a solicitor do due diligence before they ever write out to you with any kind of letter whatsoever demanding any kind of money or performance? Yes or no? Should they do due diligence?
Who?
They have to, the solicitor. The solicitor should.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah.
Right, brilliant, great. So, I know for a fact, right, offer to redeem it, mortgage, loan, whatever, offer to redeem it. Right, if they're not biting your hand off to arrange an appointment for you to go in and redeem the thing, bearing in mind that you can transfer funds electronically there and then nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So you could go in and inspect all these documents and then transfer the money and buy it back. Brilliant. So if they can't allow you to buy it back, they obviously haven't got it. They can't have done due diligence then. Pure definition.
Okay,
so in order to do due diligence, they must have verified the existence of the agreement. Because without the agreement or the documentation, they can't offer you redemption. If they can't offer you redemption and the ability to redeem and buy back the instruments that you lodged as security for a loan, well then, Why would you want to hand over any money to them? You want to speak to the man that's in possession of these things so you can redeem it.
So,
because each instrument must meet its maker, which is you, and it must have redemption. And the only party that can give it redemption is its creator, which is you.
well, so I'll break this down to simplify it a bit. If I go to I have a mortgage, so if I go to my solicitor on Monday morning and go, right, I want to buy back my mortgage, which basically pay the difference of the loan that's there.
Well, I'd go back to you go to the bank. I mean, depending on who's dealing with this, right? So, for example, look, let's put it this way: there's a guy came along for a chat, selling his property, right? And he's just about to exchange contracts, right, to sell his property. And I said, brilliant, just exchange. And once you've exchanged, now you've got a completion date, which means you've got a deadline. You've got a deadline, right? So here we are with a deadline, and the time is let's say it's the 31st of December. Well, it's now the 6th of December, and we know that on the 31st of December we're going to be completing the sale of this property. But now I say to the solicitor, well, look, you've got a duty to protect all my interests, right? Which is true, they do. Council of Licensed Conveyancers, the handbook, they're the regulator.
Okay.
So brilliant. Well, then, if you've got a duty to protect all of my interests, if you don't protect all my interests, that could be negligence, right? And could hold you liable. Brilliant. So when you're redeeming this mortgage, make sure you get all these bits back. Where did I get that all from? The conditions. So, you make sure you get that all back, because redeem means to buy back, unless a solicitor wants to correct me. If it doesn't mean to buy back, then you tell me what it means, and tell me where you're getting that. But here's just a few questions. You see, if I don't get that mortgage back, what is to stop anyone else at some point in time from coming forward and making a claim against me that I owe them money? Because they could be holding the mortgage saying that I haven't redeemed it, and they can prove I haven't redeemed it because they're holding it. So clearly I haven't bought it back if they're holding it. So therefore I must buy it back in order to prove that I bought it back.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right? Great. But if you haven't got it, now explain to me, how can I buy it back? Right, so if I can't buy it back from you, why should I be giving you money?
Well, but the other thing is, if they don't have it, if they turn around to you and say we destroyed it, then if say a government or somebody takes a judgment out on you, then how can they take a judgment out on something that doesn't exist?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if they haven't got it, any money that you've paid to them is owed back to you. As far as I'm concerned, you don't owe them anything because they can't offer you redemption. And remember, look, the only party, it's in the Bible, right? God is, or is it Jesus? I don't know. One of them, Jesus or God, was our Redeemer, right? He brought us back. He forgave us. He paid in advance for our sins, right? Yeah. Sins are, commercial debt. So he paid in advance for our sins, right? Now I know it's a metaphor and it's a story or whatever, but the point is, the instrumentation, from the instrumentation's point of view, it has to meet its maker. Right? These instruments have faces. Right? And when you read what's on these instruments, in your head, you get a little voice. So they're speaking to you. The instruments are speaking to you. They want to be redeemed. Their purpose in life is to return to source, to meet their maker. The maker of the note, the maker of the instrument, the maker of the deed, so on and so forth. So they must return to source. Now, if they don't return to source, if you can't buy them back, then the note cannot be redeemed and cannot have its redemption. And the only party that can give it redemption is its maker. Right? It's got to return to source. Right? And it's even biblical. It's got biblical connotations. So the point is, if they don't have these instruments, if they say they've destroyed it, that's great. My question would be, well, great, just cite the law which gave you the right to destroy it.
True. With so many things. I mean, this information is gold. It really is. Listen, we have loads of questions. We're going to have
Sorry, let's get back to the... Sorry, I'll go off on one.
I know. We're going to have to quick forward them over to you, because they're good questions. Steve?
Yeah, a lot of questions. A hell of a lot of questions. Moira is wondering, Simon, what happened to your YouTube account, White Rabbit Trust?
Took it down for a number of reasons. It is back up.
Okay. That's it. That's
nice
that one.
Quick. Yeah.
Nice and quick. John Teeter is wondering, when you speak of the note, is it in any way connected with the musical application of the word?
Why not? It should do, because remember, when you're reading anything on paper, your little voice in your head starts speaking to you. So yes, it has connotations, note, because it does. Remember, it's the it's so part of the harmony. Harmony's got the word harm in it. But yeah, I certainly take every word that I come across, I break it down. I might break it down and say part of it as, as I see it, and then I might pronounce, if it's got a C in it, I might pronounce the C as C, or, whatever. I'm trying to explain this, but I certainly pay a lot of regard to the words that I read and the words that are used, and I put them into context of, yes, the universal song, the flow, the tunes and everything. Yes, so I would say yes.
Okay. Chris was wondering, he said he has signed documents under duress, and he's wondering what are your thoughts on that?
You can rescind it.
Rescind it? Okay, Chris, so you can
rescind the document, recant the signature or whatever it's called. But effectively you just write in and just say, well, look, this was signed under protest and duress. I was forced to sign it, so it's null and void.
So it's just a simple case of a letter into the bank?
Yeah, notice of rescission, yeah. No, it's a null and void. You forced me to sign it. If someone puts a gun to your head and forces you to sign a document, well, it doesn't necessarily stand. Unless you wanted to sign that document in the first place. So. And
it's like very quickly, the Inland Revenue over here with the property tax, all the threats they have in the letter, it's all coercion and extortion. If you don't do this, and basically they're forcing you to register. And registration, so.
Well, remember, they're writing out nowadays, they can raid your bank account if a member of staff, and remember, what's their qualification? How good are these people? What exam grade did they get? What exam grades at school did they get? So if a member of staff newly joining HMCTS thinks that you owe them money, now you owe them money. And they can raid your bank account.
Yeah. That's another challenge, Steve.
Yeah. Siobhan is wondering, when one completes a loan, what I'm guessing Siobhan means when you've paid off a loan. Yeah. What should one look for from the bank?
You want the original document back. You want to redeem it. Check out Judge Judy on White Rabbit Trust, White Rabbit Trust YouTube channel. Just check that out. She gives you the calls of action.
Right. So the original, and this is quite interesting because I remember we had a small bank loan, and when we finished the last payment, we got a letter out from the bank saying that the thank you, this account is now closed. There's nothing more owed on it. But we never actually got the original piece of paper. So I mean, is that something I should look for?
Yes, definitely. Because look, let's put it this way: I worked for the bank, and I used to send those letters out to customers when a customer paid their loan off. We get a report. Well, you sometimes see it day to day, or you get a report at the end of the month. You dig out the documents, you dig out all the customer's documents on file, predominantly the legal agreement, and you'd send it to the customer with a nice letter, trying to get them to come back and take out another loan.
Yeah, but what if they turn around and they say to Steve, well, we've destroyed that because the loan is now finished?
Brilliant. Well, let's role play it. You're the bank, I'm the customer, and you've just told me you destroyed it. Brilliant. Well, that's great, Alan. I appreciate that you destroyed it. Was it you that destroyed it or somebody else? That's one way you could go. I just want to know from the man or the woman that had that actually destroyed it, that it has physically been destroyed. But that aside, if you're working on the presumption that the moment I handed that agreement to you, it at once became your property, okay, can you just cite the law which states I have to let you keep it? I've asked that one. You can't answer it.
Okay. Well, that's one for Steve.
You can't answer that.
Okay.
Right.
We
won't be able to answer it.
We'd like to ask you to leave the premises, please.
That's normally the one I get. I normally escort this guy off the premises.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. I think it's Graham was wondering, Simon. Please ask Simon, has he heard of the recent case in law Emptage versus Financial Services Compensation Scheme? It's a game changer for anyone who acquired a mortgage via a broker. This case has opened a Pandora's box in the legal banking realm.
I haven't heard of it, but I'm going to hazard a guess and say it's got something to do with the fact that, obviously, the financial compensation scheme. I mean, I've looked at that in as much as if you're depositing notes with the bank and they haven't got it, well, it's just a variance of money, right? It's a type of money. I mean, there is no such thing as money, as far as I'm concerned. There are different things perform the function of money. Well, those instruments have got a book value. So unless you're going to take the bank to court, one thing you might want to do is go to that financial compensation scheme. But I think from memory, isn't the financial compensation scheme in the event that an institution goes bust? So maybe that's why he was referring about the broker. Maybe that was in relation to the broker. Maybe it was the broker that went bust.
Yeah, I think I heard something like that. I think was that the ads on TV. They were saying if you've taken out a mortgage recently, but yeah, I think it is if they go bust, something like that.
Yeah, I mean what I'm basically doing is I'm trying to get to a situation where look, I don't like going to court. Not because I don't like going to court, but because I've got better things to do, right? And it's a load of paperwork and it's a waste of my time. So the point is, I try to bring the bank, I want to bring the bank to a point of negotiation. Now, I've already achieved this. I've done this before on a death case, probate, where offered to redeem the deed, and the solicitor came back within 2 hours of receiving the stuff to basically offer £40,000 off of a 110 grand balance. Because a 70 grand gift is just a little bit smaller than a 110 grand gift. But either way, it's a gift. You know, I mean, this Christmas, if my gran buys me some pants and socks, okay, well, that's just, you know, that's still a gift. And of course, it would have been better to have the jumper as well, but the pants and socks is still a gift. Yeah. I got it for nothing, right? Yeah. So the point is, you know, look, what we have to understand is that the service we are actually paying for with a mortgage, this is how I would define it. You've gone down to see a lady of the night. She's a dominatrix. And you go in there and you say, I want you to kick the crap out of me for 25 years. I don't care how much I beg for you to stop. You keep dishing it out to me. I want some suffering. Right? I want the pain. I want to be left in a set of conditions which puts me under stress and pressure because I want to see how I cope. That is the mortgage product. All right, now look at it. I mean, it's true. I mean, well, if we've got some time at the end, I'll go through my little wordplay as to how I explain some of that. But it's true. It's absolutely true.
We have a bit to fit in. Very quickly, we need to talk about the inland revenue and the whole idea of paying tax. If we can do that very quickly. We have about 15-ish minutes left.
Right, okay.
So how many questions do we have there, Steve?
About, 4 at the moment.
Okay. Well, let's quickly do the inland revenue. Let's have a chat about that, and then if we can fit questions in, we'll fit them in. Okay. Right. So inland revenue, right? At the moment where we're at, is everybody's saying freedom to fascism. Aaron Russo about whether you have to pay tax on your labour, and we are questioning that over here in Ireland as well. I'm sure you were doing it over there in the UK. How far down the road have you gone? Have you found any information, and have they got back to you telling you what the law is regarding that?
I've never seen a law obliging me to pay anything, and if there is a law obliging me to pay it, I'd be interested to see the description of how you pay something when you only have promises to pay.
Right, okay. So they've given you no information at all to say that you have to pay tax on your labour?
Absolutely not. I don't have to pay any tax. It's a voluntary gift as far as I'm concerned. You've got various, esteemed law commentators over the last couple of 100 years that have written down and stated that all tax is a gift from the people to the government. And that's the way that it should be. If government does a good job, right, if people that are in government are confident that they are the only ones that can kind of do this job and that they can do a good job and manage things efficiently, people would want to pay them.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Right?
What about the likes of them applying acts and statutes to your argument?
No, acts and statutes only apply. Look, how can someone? Well, let's put it this way: how can I write down a piece of paper, or even me and my buddies, we write down a piece of paper and then we say, right, now you've got to stick to that law. Right, that's law. It's an act. It's an encouragement. It encourages you to act in a certain way, but. And then if you act in that way, well, you just made it law. You gave it the force of law. You see, this goes on all the time. This is why I don't think we're ever going to have, at least not in the next, maybe not in my lifetime, right? We're not going to actually necessarily have a situation where everyone works together in a perfect way. Right? Because there will always be someone that wants to try it on. Even if it's a case whereby you're trying it on with a girl, or the girl's trying it on with you, or whatever the scenario is. There's always someone that isn't necessarily 100% coming from the right place. It's always out there, right? And we can all flip into it. We all make mistakes. So the point is, we all have to be vigilant, and we all have to know how to deal with these things, right? We all have to be prepared to deal with these things, and it's down to us, the people, to deal with these things repeatedly and consistently, and that's the only way you're then going to make these parties trying it on cower away and be afraid to try it on with anyone else.
Yeah.
If they keep getting caught out with everyone they try it on with, they try it on with 10 people, and 10 people bang on, catch them out, and make them look foolish, they may well change their ways and then change what they're doing for a job. But the point is, as far as I'm concerned, there is absolutely categorically no obligation whatsoever to pay tax. And the obligation itself, if there is a liability, remember, every obligation must have a liability, right? Or every liability must have an obligation for you to pay it. So if they come along and say there's a liability, well, first and foremost, we need to establish how that liability arose. And secondly, we then need to establish what is the charging instrument that is obliging me to pay it. Right? Well, the instrument would be the Act of Parliament, but the Act of Parliament itself verifies that I have no obligation. It's just that they're not reading it right. But then again, that's no big surprise, because the members of staff are not legally qualified.
Right, okay. And of course, you know, they use the thuggery as well, the threats and the coercion and everything else to actually try and force you to pay it.
Because it's a protection racket.
Yeah. It always goes back to the mafia protection racket. It's the same thing with the government, the same thing. If you don't give us the money, we're going to beat you up or we're going to lock you up. That's exactly all it is. That's all it is.
Exactly, but it's a very elaborate and very refined protection racket which offers, remember, they protect property and maintain security. So they will protect property, right, and maintain security, and they'll do it in a certain way, and you're going to pay them for doing that. And if you don't do that, well, then that means that other people that demand money in order to offer you protection might come along and do that. It's just a protection racket.
Yeah.
Always has been. And it's, you know, Game of Thrones. Anyone that wants to see how the whole system and how, you know, life on this planet operates, well, watch Game of Thrones.
I have to say, I haven't seen that myself, so I don't watch it.
You've got to watch it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's quick fire these questions over to you, Steve.
Okay, there's a lot of questions, and what I've done for the ones that we can't, or maybe we may run out of time, Simon, I've dropped them in the chat room or in the chat on Skype, and maybe at some point in time, if we don't get to ask them, you might be able to just maybe fire us over a quick one-line answer. That would be fantastic. But we'll continue on with them anyway while we can. This is from Lee on People's Internet Radio. A friend is about to pay off, discharge a £6,000 bank loan. But before they do, what would Simon suggest is a good first few steps to take before handing over the lump of cash?
Brilliant. Well, I would offer to go into the branch or to go whatever location that the bank nominates, and I would say, right, you make sure that I want to redeem the agreement, the security, the credit agreement. I wish to redeem that. So where and when should I come along to redeem it? And when I'm in the branch, I can phone up and I can transfer it there and then from my bank over to you guys. Right? But I need to see that you've got it. Now, the chances are that's going to go backwards and forwards where the bank will just demand money. It depends how you want to play it and how long you want to stay in this game for, because the bank will just constantly make you offers to come in and settle.
Yeah.
So it's up to you whether you want to settle, to give away, or whether you want to redeem, to buy back. Okay? And it's the interaction. I've been playing this game for about 5 years now, right? The last 2 years, 18 months playing with the redemption side of things and playing with a few just little tweaks. And I can say it does drag on, and it does drag on, but there are points, I call them trigger points, where you can then flip the whole situation round. And I wait for certain distinct events to take place. When I'm interacting with a bank, I play it in various different ways, but it's generally the same thing, relying on the same thing. Proof of claim, proof of loss, right? Albeit the fact it's, if I can't redeem the instrument, I've got no obligation to pay you.
Good stuff,
Okay.
Steve.
Okay, we'll continue on. Where to next? This is another one here that Graham says in relation to destroying documents. They'll never say we destroyed it. They say things like, due to storage restrictions, we cannot keep the whole file, but we have electronic audit trail. That's what they take into court. That's the sleight of hand, he says. It's a house of cards.
Well, what I would say to that is this: the Data Protection Act requires you to handle my data in accordance with my wishes. It also obliges the bank to handle their data properly, right? Now, one line I've used to many bank staff is this: if someone over at the bank decides that you haven't got a big enough storage facility, here's an idea: get a bigger storage facility. Because at the end of the day, unless you can cite the law which gives you the right to destroy that documentation, which I believe is defined as property and is property which is owed back to me, unless you can find the law which gives you the right to destroy it, then you're screwed. So over to you. Where's the law? Cite the law.
Cool. Leave it in their court. Steve.
Yeah. Moira is wondering, ask Simon, does he think the control system will end at any time soon? If so, by what year?
No. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. And the reason that I don't think it's going to end anytime soon is because, and not wanting to appear negative, it could, but I don't think it will. And the reason I don't think it will is that even from what I've witnessed in the conscious community, people are too busy attacking each other to work together.
Yes,
it always brings to mind that scene from Braveheart where he's just been made a protector of Scotland, and the nobles are arguing amongst themselves who's going to become king. For a war they haven't even won yet, and Braveheart's walking out the door, and they say, "Well, where are you going?" He goes, "Well, I'm going to go and invade England. You guys are too busy arguing amongst yourselves."
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
You're missing your opportunity. And so, do I think the control system's going to end? No.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of ego and ignorance in the community, and we've come across it, and I'm sure other people have, and it doesn't help. We're all on the same side. We're trying to do the same thing, but because of the ego and the ignorance, and certain agendas that people have, it just destroys it. It doesn't help. Steve.
No, I agree.
Yeah, Whelan1 is wondering, I've listened to Spaniard video on commercial lien several times, but was wondering, is he intending on following up with another video on the same?
No, I'm not. And the reason being is because when you put videos up, I've got, when I first started getting the word out as such, my overriding objective, it's still my overriding objective, was to help people and to get the word out because of what I believed I saw coming, right? And what I believed I could see shaping up from what we had going on around us. Now, I've got to be honest, everything that is happening out there, we are, as people, as a collective, doing to ourselves. Now, I know that's obvious because it's people that are pressing the buttons. Unless we suddenly find out some aliens are involved, it's people that are pressing the buttons, it's people that are giving the instructions, it's people that are interpreting those instructions in certain ways and then doing nasty things and so on and so forth. But ultimately, it's people that have to work together in order to put these things right. So, ultimately, when I put these videos up, the thing is, people are people. There's a whole variance, and I get attacked from some. I've had numerous death threats. I've had numerous threats. I've had numerous abuses. I get my fair share of idiots come on that really, I would love to maybe debate with online because I think I could probably humiliate them in 3 questions. Because they have no arguments. So a lot of these people have no argument. There are too many critics, and there are too many people that just give noise. They just make noise. And I've had lots of instances over the last 2 years, 18 months. I've had loads of it. We even had a law firm which we created from 4 years ago. We were talking about it. Lots of people were talking about it around the country, wanting their own law firm. And I tried to make it a reality and had a couple of friends that were setting this thing up. And what's happened as a result of creating our own law firm? Well, I'll tell you what. Members of staff have had to leave because they've been receiving abusive phone calls. The people that actually own the company and are running the company have put their own homes up to try and help people out. People have taken that help and then stuck 2 fingers up. It's brilliant. It's lovely. So, I kind of get to the point, for me, I look at that and I don't really like I don't like mucking around with anyone. I take no crap really from people. If I help people out, it's on my terms. And if they don't like it, I wish them well and they can go and do it themselves. No problem. Right? I'm not stopping anyone from doing it themselves. I want people to do it themselves, right? I can't help everyone on the planet, and I don't think everyone would want my help, but I can't help everyone on the planet. I'm one guy. But at the end of the day, it makes it very difficult for someone like me that's got, willing to open his mouth, big mouth up, and get out, onto the internet, release some information, try to divert people's eyes and try to say, well, look, come and have a look at this kind of stuff. But ultimately what happens all too often is that people that are afraid and they want to have a backup, they want to have someone to blame. So they don't do the research themselves, or they don't take the punt themselves, or they want you to, have your video up there so they can turn around and say, well, I did that and it didn't work, it's his fault over there. Well, that's absolute poppycock. That's rubbish. Because that's like me saying, I saw Ronaldo on TV do a free kick, so I tried to copy him and it didn't work. I didn't score, so Ronaldo's crap. He's talking rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I know, yeah. It's just the way it is, and it's frustrating. It really is.
It is. So, I would like to put more a video up about the liens, but unfortunately there are too many stupid people out there that don't know what they're doing. They get themselves into trouble, and all they end up doing is turning around and pointing the finger at me. So my attitude to that is, well, stuff you. I won't put them up then.
Yeah, and it's a pity because you did have great videos. You really did. Well, we have time for 2 more questions, and we'll have to call it quits then.
Okay, Nita on People's Internet Radio is wondering who or what is the person that is referred to on all the documents?
Well, it depends on the definition of the word person within the context of that document, whatever document she's referring to.
And then if you look at Black's Law's dictionary and the definition of the word person...
It depends. It depends which document you're looking at. Let's put it this way. Stroud's Judicial Dictionary has got 68 versions, 68 different definitions of the word person. And it cites various acts of parliament. So even in different acts of parliament, the word person means something different. And in one act, I think on the video I originally had up on White Rabbit Trust, there's an act of parliament which refers to the word person, which is actually meaning you're a man's member, or penis. There's another act of parliament which refers to the word person, and that actually means an institution which is looking after children. So it depends on the context of the document. And remember, it's all context.
Yeah. No, it's a minefield. Steve, okay, we have one more for you.
Okay, Moira is wondering, does Simon want a new currency not created by privately owned central banks and with no interest?
We already have a currency that's not created by central banks. It's called time energy.
Yeah, time banking.
Okay. Remember, well, it's time energy, right? That's the currency that people have available to them. And within that time energy, I use intellectual property as well and stuff like that, or intellectual currency, should I say. And time energy, break it down. Timey energy. We spend time. That's why we say it's time spent. So it is a currency. And we burn energy.
Yeah, well, this is one thing that we had on the show, and we talked about was time banking, and it's very big in the UK. When I was over in the UK, that's where I learned about it. And basically, when I came back over here, and I looked around, and nobody was doing time banking, and it's something that we'd like to kind of promote and get it out there, and get people to understand what it is. If people want to know more about what time banking is, if you've never heard of it, go to the front page of Open Your Mind Radio, OYMradio.com, and we have a video and some information there all about what time banking is, because that's the currency. It's not this paper money that we have. It's our labour. It's our energy. That's the currency. And if the bank does go down, if the banking system collapses, that's what you'll be relying on. So, very, very important. Simon, a big thank you for coming on the show. The information has been superb. What can I say? Thank you for coming on. It's very educational for the people, for our listeners. And, we could spend another hour going through questions and going through stuff, but we don't have the time. But a big thank you for coming on. I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your links, where people can find you, where people can contact you, and keep up the good work.
No worries, my pleasure being on, and I hope everyone just stand up, just stand up and do what you think is right. That's all I can say. It takes everyone to stand up and do their job and their duty, and their job and their duty is just to ask people bloody questions before just doing what you're told. And if there are people out there that just do what they're told, please get your checkbook out, clear your bank account, send it to me, Simon Spaniard, right? Okay, and assign all your property to me. If you just do what people tell you to do, then do that.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, I think, Simon, the fact that people are on here, the fact that people, but the fact that people are here and they're listening to this, I think that they're already kind of well clued in. And I'm not saying you're preaching to the converted, but I definitely believe that there are people out there who know this information, and when they hear you on and telling some of your stories and what you've done, I think that those words empower people to continue on and educate other people. Like that's exactly what happens to me. Like you come on here, you give us this great information. I will then take that information. It will empower me. I'll go into work, and I'll bring it up, and when we're talking in the canteen, between 1 and 2, I'll throw it into conversation, and I'll just throw it on the table and say, what do you think of this? And when people kind of say, oh, that wouldn't work, I say, well, hang on a second, I know a guy who's done this and he's having great success. And it's an eye opener for a lot of people, because, as you say, a lot of people will go into a bank and they're given information, or information is demanded from them, and they just kind of quiver and they do exactly what they're told because they believe that they have to. They don't believe they have the power to ask questions. And I mean, just one quick example. A couple of years ago, we were in a bank, and the lady who was filling out a form asked me for a mobile number. I said this a couple of weeks back, and I said to her, I only give my mobile number to friends and family, and a permanent TSB is neither. And she was friendly up to that point, and then she turned, oh, you're refusing to give your phone number? I said, well, it's only for friends and family. I don't want the bank ringing me. I said, Again, it's only friends and family. Oh, and she's putting it down. So you're refusing to give your number. I says, well, I'm not refusing anything, but I'm just saying it's reserved for friends and family. Anyway, right, Simon, because we are up to the wire here, running out of time, can you just throw us a couple of links where people can find out more about this great information?
Right, okay, yeah, I'll try and put something on the Skype right now for you.
That would be a blessing.
Sorry, you want me to say it? Sorry.
No. If you can type it, because I'm guessing you can probably type quicker than I can. I'm a two-finger typist.
I'll type it for you.
Thanks very much.
We'll cut and paste it and put it into the chat room for the people to find it.
Yeah.
Okay, Simon. Excellent.
No worries, guys. Good to talk to you.
Oh, wait, stay with us there for a minute, Simon. We're just going to go off to a musical break, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
And we're back, Womack and Womack, solid as a rock. And that's just a reflection on Simon's information. It's good, solid information. And we're just shooting the breeze with him there during the song. And he wants to come back on again. He knows that there's a lot of questions that we didn't get to. And as I say, I did send them over to him. So hopefully we will have him on again at a later date, and we will get to those questions. If not, if he answers them on Skype, then what I may do next week, if he does, we'll maybe take a couple of seconds and just throw the answers out there.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so that was great information, I have to say. It makes you think that when you're dealing with entities like the banks or the government and stuff like that, to ask the question. Again, I do not consent, or you say, I will pay what you want me to pay, just answer these questions. Now, a friend of mine, a friend of myself and Steve, Steph, or Mary, as sometimes Steve affectionately calls her, has opened up a business down in Ashbourne Industrial Estate. It's a craft shop, and she's just giving a little bit of a plug because she's done fantastic, and it's just been set up there. It's just opened in the last 2 weeks. So if you're into crafting, hobby crafting, and making cards and all that kind of stuff, then that's going to be ideal for you. And she's going to have she has a business down there where you can walk in and look at all the crafts, and you can do demos and all that kind of stuff. So the website is called just littlecraftshop.com. Not there, just littlecraftshop.com. Pop over there and have a look, and you can check it out there. But it does make you think again, to not just accept the information and to say, I do not consent, or stay in honour, as we say you offer to pay it, but ask the questions. I think that's half the battle, dealing with it. And that's what I've been doing over certain things that have been coming into me, and saying, yeah, of course, I'll give you what you want. Just here's the questions that I want to know first, and of course, if you, as far as I can remember, they can't tell you what to believe, I mean, if you believe something, that's your belief, and that's the way it is, and, so that's the best way to deal with it. Now, next week, we have Sergeant Daniel Brad McBolan III. Now, Sergeant Daniel, or Danny, is going to be on. We're going to be talking about all things major. I mean, he's friends with Paddy Broussard, so we're going to be talking about the big stuff. We're going to be talking about the CERN and, all the elites and what's going on a bigger scale, on a planetary level, not on the law, not a day-to-day stuff, but on the big stuff. So if that floats your boat, then tune in next week. And just hear what Daniel has to say. CERN is a biggie at the moment. There's been a lot of stuff going on about CERN, and if they get what they want with CERN, then it could be really disastrous. And so far, they've managed, between Paddy Broussard, Karen, Danny, and Simon Parks, and a few other people, they've managed to keep CERN off the radar, keep it down, and not working. But you never know. Things change all the time. So. We'll find out from Daniel as to what's going on there. So that's the plan of attack for next week. But otherwise, we're just getting things ramped up for, well, I say not ramped up, but slowing down for Christmas. We have a few more guests coming on over the Christmas period. A few more guests that we're trying to secure as well. One of them is, we've talked before on the show about a lady called Catherine Albrecht, who's an expert with Wi-Fi technology and chips and all that kind of stuff. And we are going to do a pre-record with Catherine, and hopefully we're going to get it on this side of Christmas, fingers crossed, if we can fit it in. We have, the amount of guests that we have that want to come on the show is just phenomenal. It really is phenomenal. And the amount of return guests that we're going to have on the show is phenomenal. So, as you know, we only broadcast once a week because we're busy enough during our own personal life and everything else that's going on there. So we can only really do the once a week. So, but fingers crossed, we'll get people on next year again, ramp up the schedule and get people on, get information out there, and keep doing what we're doing.
Yes, I totally agree. No, I'm sorry, just didn't know you're finished. We will. As I say, there is a lot of people who we want to have on, a lot of people who've agreed to come on. But unfortunately, it's just once a week. I mean, let's put it this way: if I could afford, if both Alan and I were getting paid to do this, happy days, we'd be on 7 nights a week. I'm sure my missus and Alan's missus wouldn't be complaining. We'd be out their hair anyway. Anyway, just a quick mention. Vin is going to have I think Sherry Fisher on at 9 p.m. on People's Internet Radio. That's going to be fantastic information, much along the same lines as the information Simon shared with us this evening. So if you're kind of still fired up after Simon's information, switch over or stay tuned if you're already listening on PIR for Vin. Whelan One just says Kajagoogoo have reformed.
They have nothing.
I can hear joy. I don't know, a rapturous applause from somewhere. So that's great information. What else was I going to say?
Don't forget the Smart Meter documentary if you want to check out that. Good information on that.
Yeah, we'll put that back up in the link. And the Full Circle Project, I've been asked to give that a shout from Moira. It's fullcircleproject.net. I will post that link up as well. We should all be members of that. I wasn't too clued in on it, to be completely honest, because so much information comes past us. So we'll check that out after the show as well. And
we don't know. We don't know. We haven't checked it out, so we don't know what it is yet. So we need to check it out. So
yeah,
we're not promoting it as such until we check it out, but we'll see what it is.
No,
anyway.
I'm just saying it's a link that was sent over, so we will check it out.
Yeah.
And again, Moira says it's in relation to Max Egan. Well.
Oh, fine. Okay, we'll have a look at that anyway. Okay, from myself, Alan James, take it easy. Have a safe week. If you have any information, send it over to us. We'll be happy to look at that. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, and from myself, Stephen George, we'll do it all again next week. Stay tuned for Vin and Sherry Fisher on People's Internet Radio. Take care. Bye-bye.